once again, Invictus Games is, it's inspirational. It's amazing. I'm sitting here with a gentleman who served in the Canadian military, went over to Afghanistan, went to Bosnia. Thank you so much for your time there, Mike Trauner.
Thanks so much. I'm great to be here.
What I would like you to do first is, take you back to when you're in Afghanistan, the day that you were injured, and talk not only about that, but your vehicle was blown up prior to that too.
So I'll start with the vehicle. It was September, and we actually just got called out for a mission to, provide security for the engineers. The engineers were given the orders to tear down these buildings, because every time that any friendly forces would go through there, they were coming under contact. So we went there, and it was pretty standard. The engineers were doing their job, and we got surrounded by insurgents, and I was the only vehicle on that side. I was facing to the south, and they were all in my line of sight. So I dismounted all my men, got them in firing positions, and I took control of the LAV vehicle. The first RPG came in. It hit the front of the vehicle, which I thought accidentally had killed my driver. Luckily, it didn't. I remember the electronics flashing inside the vehicle, and nothing worked anymore. I ordered my gunner to fire the cannon, the 25 mil chain gun, and it failed. It just went clunk. And it kept trying to cycle, and it couldn't cycle. All the electronics kept flashing. So I told my gunner, I said, switch over to coax C6 machine gun and begin laying down from these arcs to this arcs. So while he was working on that, I climbed on top of the LAV, and I had a Pintle C6 machine gun on top as well. I had 440 rounds ready to go, and I wasn't afraid to use it because I wanted to defend my men. And I did. And I repelled all the enemy forces that day. Unfortunately, I had to do some terrible things. But me and all my men came back from that engagement, and I'm glad I did it, because if I didn't, then we definitely would have lost men that day.
Now I'd like to continue on, the day of the accident.
Yeah. So I'll start off on December 4th, 2008. We just finished a patrol, so the guys were tired, and my company commander called all the commanders in to the Furneaux group, basically, and he said, okay, well, we have a mission to do tomorrow. We're going to do a company-sized patrol. So all 200 guys are going to go out. This is our objective and all that kind of thing. So we went out. I ordered my men to get up at about 3 o'clock in the morning, which they love, and I love too. So, and I remember December 5th getting up, waking the guys up, and it felt so calm. There was nothing unusual about it. The weather was nice. It was kind of cool. It was peaceful. And when we actually left, we dismounted our vehicles. So typically we would take the vehicles with us, but we were on a very narrow goat path type of area. So we dismounted the vehicles. And when you're the commander on the ground for your section, and your guys were already bogged down with all that different equipment, we also were responsible to take mortars and stuff with us too, just in case. So I agreed to take 4 additional mortar shells for my guys, and I put them in my backpack. Which initially I think made me a target, because I was second last order in the march. And the enemy forces use a strategy too, like we would, and they will either hit the front of the pack, the middle, or the rear to create disturbance, basically, and chaos. And that's what they did. 7 o'clock in the morning that morning, my company commander gave us the halt. So we stepped off the road, ordered my men into an all-around defense, standard procedure, nothing unusual. We waited. Some of the guys were just hanging on and waiting. 7:30 came along. We got the order to stand up, move back onto the road, and continue our march. Everything's clear. It's been cleared by the engineers. Let's move out. So we did. We stood up. I stepped over a berm, and I'm not talking just like a small little berm. I'm talking like a berm that's maybe about a foot tall, but it runs the length of the roads. Like, it's quite literally like how we have like a concrete pillars running the length of the roads here. So, and that's where the IED was. It was remote detonated, so probably a cell phone or something like that. The bomb went off. It just kind of felt like a clap in my ears. I was flying through the air. I landed back in the crater, which is about 1 meter deep and about the size of a large truck. So I didn't know I actually got blown up at that time. I didn't really know what happened. My whole body was just vibrating like this. I couldn't actually control anything at that point. I waited there for a second. I realized that we had been hit by something, But I thought I would just give it a second for my body to catch up and catch my breath, and then I would step up and carry on with my mission. At that point, I heard my driver screaming because he was behind me. And what happened to him was he got blasted back so far, he actually landed approximately 30 meters away from me, and he got sprayed head to toe with shrapnel. And I heard it on my headset, 'cause I still have my radio on, that there was a double leg amputee with severe sustained injuries. And instantly I thought he was one that was a double limb amputee. And I'm thinking, oh my God, now I'm going to have to talk to his parents and his wife and explain to them how he died in battle. And as the commander, you feel responsible for losing your men. So that's who I was more concerned about instead of myself. Until the guys actually came over and they told me, Mike, you're going to be okay. We're going to get you out of here. And I seen they started working on my legs. I lifted my arms, and that's when I first realized how badly injured I was. My radials were actually slashed on my arms. My combats were smoking, and blood was just spitting out like you'd see in the movies. My gloves were melted to both my hands. I remember kind of reaching around for my C7 assault rifle. I couldn't find it, and what it did was it exploded in my hands and shrapneled, and it went right through my hand, right there. And that piece of C7 is still in my hand. It's a big chunk. So my weapon's still with me to this day because I did like that weapon too. Yeah. At that point, I died. Everything just went white. I had the strange near-death experience. And then I kind of came to again, maybe a couple minutes later. Our company medic was standing beside me and just like, Mike, breathe, talk to me. Because they put plasma into my body and it never worked before. So the plasma was going through my bloodstream at that time, with whatever blood I had left. And it was given just enough that I can actually get oxygen through my body to sustain myself. But at that point, I'd already let go. I just didn't feel like I was going to make it, but I didn't care. You just you're ready to let go if you have to. The Blackhawks came. They put me on the helicopter. I got back to Role 3 in Afghanistan. And the doctor asked me a question. He says, from a pain scale from 1 to 10, what's your pain level? And of course I swore at him, and what kind of a question is that? But he was asking that to test my cognitive, to make sure I didn't have any brain damage or something like that. So he said, I'm going to give you a sedative, and we're going to put you out. You're going to be okay. I'm going to put you into surgery right away. So they put me under, and I died again. I bled out. So I woke up approximately 3 days later in Landstuhl, Germany, and I was on life support. And it's the greatest pain I think I'd ever experienced in my life at that point. The machine is compressing your body, forcing you to breathe, and forcing your system to work. Luckily, I was kind of in and out of consciousness. A nurse had come in periodically I think she was there all the time, actually. But my timeline is completely shot. I can't tell you what's what, but I remember the one time she came in, and I was off life support at that time. So we contacted your wife. She's going to be coming to Landstuhl. And of course, I was teary-eyed. And she said, we have to try to get you to eat. And you got 2 options. Number 1, you could try to eat. Or number 2, we're going to have to jam a feeding tube down your throat and force you to eat. So I said, give me an apple. Let's give this a go. And of course, it was so hard to actually eat. Your body's in so much shock, right?
You have an interesting story that's around the Invictus Games itself.
I do. So I just actually came out of a surgery in 2015 where they were going to take my leg, the rest of my leg on my right side, and what they had to do was sacrifice my right arm, the rest of that, and put it into my leg. So I was at home actually for about 1.5 years, and I was starting to get depressed and upset and all that kind of stuff that I couldn't actually move. If I tried to move too much, my artery could separate and I would die anyways. So I got a phone call from Mr. Michael Burns, the president of the Invictus Games here in Toronto. And he says, I want you and your wife to come down to the launch of the Invictus Games in Toronto, which is going to be held next year, which is this year. And, Prince Harry be there. We'd like you to meet him, and I'd like you to meet all the athletes. So we went. And, of course, we got there, and all my friends and things were there, and they told me what kind of a positive outcome Invictus had on their lives. And, of course, I'm getting a little emotional at that time. I'm so proud of you guys. So I wanted to be a part of that as well. And who comes walking into the room but Prince Harry himself? So Prince Harry comes over and he says, nice to meet you. I'm Prince Harry. And I'm like, well, I'm Mike Trauner. And he says, are you on the team this year? And I said, well, no, I just had a surgery, and I explained the circumstances. And he said, well, I challenge you to join the team for next year, and I would like to see you there. I want to see you competing next year and giving it all you can and representing the Invictus spirit. So I said, I accept your challenge. I'll be there. And I shook his hand, and he had a big old smile on his face. But then all the cameras from all of Toronto pointed, and they faced me. And at that time, they were waiting for my response to Prince Harry. And when I said yes, and at that point, I think I was committed, right? So because everybody's got the cameras on you, challenge accepted. Yeah.
We're looking at this spirit of Invictus. What does this say to you?
Like I said, Invictus is not about winning. People are here to defeat their own demons. For me, I'm trying to challenge myself. I'm trying to better myself. I don't want people just to view me as, a guy in a wheelchair. I miss the day when people see me as a soldier, like I represented my country. So to actually put on the Canadian uniform again, the flag, and represent everything that I believe in and truly represent, that's what means the most to me about Invictus. And talking to a lot of the competitors around here too, I gather that's what they love about it as well.
Thank you so much for your time, Mike. And you know what? You're inspirational. Keep doing what you're doing.
Oh, thank you so much.